The alien sun pulsed an angry red on the horizon, its surface roiling with solar flares that lashed out into space like the tentacles of some cosmic beast. On the planet's surface, a city of crystalline towers trembled as the ground beneath shuddered. And within those towers, thousands of glowing eyes watched the dying star with mounting terror. They had run out of time. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Interstellar Rescue Corps ship Odyssey, her dark eyes locked on the main view screen. The signal they detected was faint, almost imperceptible against the background radiation of space, but it was undeniably there. A distress call from a planet orbiting a star on the verge of going supernova. "Analysis, Dr. Lee?" she asked, not taking her eyes off the view screen. Dr. Marcus Lee, the ship's xenobiologist, frowned at his console. "The signal is definitely artificial, Captain. But it's unlike anything in our database. It's not using any standard IRC frequencies or protocols." "Alien?" Vasquez asked, one eyebrow raised. "Most likely," Lee confirmed. "And they're in trouble. That star has weeks, maybe days before it goes nova." Sergeant Jake Ramirez, the ship's security officer, crossed his arms over his broad chest. "Could be a trap," he cautioned. "The Zorvans have been expanding into this sector. We've had reports of them using distress signals to lure in ships before." Vasquez considered this, drumming her fingers on the armrest of her chair. The Interstellar Rescue Corps had been formed after humanity's expansion into space, dedicated to humanitarian missions across the galaxy. They weren't military, but they weren't naive either. "K-9 Specialist Chen, what's your assessment?" she asked, turning to a slender woman standing near the back of the bridge, a German shepherd sitting attentively at her feet. Mia Chen knelt beside her canine partner, stroking his fur thoughtfully. "Max is picking up on something unusual about the signal. He's been restless since we entered this system." The dog wagged his tail at the sound of his name but continued to stare intently at the view screen, ears perked forward. The special bond between human handlers and their canine partners had been one of humanity's greatest strengths in space exploration. Dogs' heightened senses and unwavering loyalty had proven invaluable on countless missions, and the Odyssey carried a small team of specially trained canines. "I say we investigate," Mia continued. "If there's even a chance someone needs our help down there." Vasquez nodded. She'd made her decision. "Helm, take us into orbit. Prepare a landing party, Dr. Lee, Sergeant Ramirez, Specialist Chen. And Max, of course." She stood, straightening her uniform. "I'll be leading this one personally." As the Odyssey approached the dying planet, Xerion, according to their star charts, the ship's sensors painted a grim picture. Massive storms racked the surface, and seismic activity was off the charts. The planet was literally tearing itself apart as its star's gravitational influence became increasingly erratic. "Life signs?" Vasquez asked as they prepared the shuttle. "Scattered settlements," Lee replied, studying his scanner. "Several large concentrations, mostly underground. But I'm getting strange readings. Their biosignatures don't match anything in our database." The shuttle descended through Xerion's turbulent atmosphere, buffeted by winds that threatened to tear it apart. Ramirez's expert piloting brought them down in a relatively stable area near the strongest signal source, what appeared to be the remains of a once magnificent city. As they stepped out onto alien soil for the first time, the landscape took their breath away. Despite the planet's impending doom, Xerion was beautiful. Crystalline formations jutted from the ground, reflecting the angry light of the dying sun in prismatic splendor. Strange, phosphorescent plant life glowed in blues and purples, providing illumination in the deepening twilight. "Stay alert," Ramirez warned, hand resting on his sidearm. "We don't know what—" He was interrupted by Max's sudden bark. The German shepherd's attention was fixed on a ridge of crystals about 50 meters away, his posture alert but not aggressive. "He senses something," Mia translated, unclipping Max's leash. "Let's follow him." Max led them confidently through the alien terrain, occasionally pausing to sniff the air or ground. The team followed cautiously until they reached a cave entrance partially hidden behind a cluster of glowing plants. And that's when they saw them for the first time. Eyes gleamed in the darkness of the cave, dozens of pairs, glowing with an internal light that shifted through colors like the northern lights of Earth. As the creatures emerged into the open, the humans gasped in unison. They resembled dogs, about the size of a husky or German shepherd, but their fur rippled with bioluminescence, patterns of light flowing across their bodies like living electricity. Their faces were more elongated than Earth canines, with larger eyes that seemed to hold an intelligence that went beyond animal instinct. "Fascinating," Dr. Lee whispered, already scanning them with his instruments. "They appear to be canids, but their cellular structure, there's something almost crystalline about it. And the bioluminescence seems to be some form of communication." Indeed, as they watched, the patterns of light flowing across the creatures' bodies changed and shifted in complex ways. Max approached the nearest one cautiously, his tail held neutral but not tucked, curious rather than afraid. The alien dog regarded Max with equal interest. Then, to everyone's surprise, the lights across its body pulsed in sequence, and Max responded with a soft whine and a head tilt. "They're communicating," Mia breathed, watching in amazement. Dr. Lee nodded excitedly. "Their bioluminescence creates patterns that must convey meaning. And Max is picking up on other signals, scent, body language, maybe even something we can't detect." The alien dog, the Luminar as they would later come to call the species, stepped forward and pressed its forehead against Max's. For a moment, both animals went completely still. Then Max turned to Mia, barking urgently. "He's trying to tell us something," Mia said, her brow furrowed in concentration as she interpreted her partner's signals. I think they're asking for help." As if to confirm her words, more Luminars emerged from the cave, their fur pulsing with identical patterns: urgency, fear, pleading. One particularly large individual with silver-blue fur approached Captain Vasquez directly, its eyes meeting hers with unmistakable intelligence. The Luminar sat before her and placed one paw on the ground. With the other paw, it scraped a rough circle in the dirt, then pointed upward at the angry red star visible through Xerion's increasingly thin atmosphere. The message couldn't have been clearer: their world was dying. Captain Vasquez knelt to meet the Luminar's gaze. "We're here to help," she said softly, unsure if the creature could understand her words but hoping her tone would convey her meaning. "That's what we do." The silver-blue Luminar, whom Mia would later name Lyra, bowed its head in what seemed like gratitude, then turned and led the humans deeper into the cave, toward the heart of the Luminar civilization and the beginning of the greatest rescue mission in IRC history. Back aboard the Odyssey, an emergency meeting was underway in the ship's conference room. "There are thousands of them," Dr. Lee explained, projecting his findings onto the main display. "From what I can tell, they've been a spacefaring civilization in the past, but much of their technology was destroyed in earlier cataclysms as their star began its death cycle." "They're intelligent?" asked Chief Engineer Torres, who had remained aboard the ship during the initial contact. "Undoubtedly," Lee confirmed. "They have a complex social structure and communication system. Their bioluminescence isn't just for show, it's a sophisticated language. And there's something else." He hesitated. "They appear to share a sort of collective consciousness, not quite a hive mind, but a deep empathic connection." "Are they telepathic?" Vasquez asked, leaning forward with interest. "Not exactly, but close. It seems to be a function of their unique neural structure. They can share experiences, emotions, even memories through direct contact, which explains the interaction we saw between Max and the one Mia calls Lyra." Ramirez leaned back in his chair, frowning. "So what's the plan, Captain? We're talking about thousands of alien beings. The Odyssey can't possibly evacuate them all." "No," Vasquez agreed, "but we can coordinate a rescue." She turned to face the view screen, which now showed a real-time image of Xerion's dying star. "Dr. Lee, how long does this planet have?" Lee's expression was grim. "Based on our readings, the star will go supernova in approximately 2 weeks. The planet itself? Maybe 10 days before it becomes completely uninhabitable." A heavy silence fell over the room. "We need to call for backup," Torres suggested. "Contact IRC headquarters, request additional ships." "The nearest IRC vessel is 3 weeks away at maximum warp," Ramirez countered. "And we're in a disputed sector. The Zorvans could complicate things." Mia, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "We can't just leave them." Max, sitting beside her chair, whined in agreement. "They're intelligent beings asking for our help. Isn't that exactly what the IRC stands for?" Vasquez nodded slowly. "It is. But Sergeant Ramirez is right. We can't evacuate thousands of Luminars with just the Odyssey." She paused, thinking. "But maybe we don't have to do it alone." She stood and walked to the display, bringing up schematics of the fallen Luminar technology that Lee had documented. "Dr. Lee, you said they were once spacefaring. Is there any chance their ships could be salvaged?" Lee rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Possibly. Most were damaged beyond repair in earlier disasters, but with our technology and expertise, maybe we could get a few operational again. And if we combine those with our shuttles and the Odyssey itself," Vasquez continued, the plan forming in her mind. "It would still be tight," Torres cautioned. "We'd be pushing every system to its limit." "I'm more concerned about the Zorvans," Ramirez interjected. "If they're active in this sector and detect what we're doing, they'll see it as an opportunity. Thousands of Luminars, vulnerable during evacuation, they'd make prime targets for their collection." The Zorvans were known throughout the galaxy as exploiters and opportunists. They didn't conquer. They harvested, taking what they wanted from vulnerable species and planets before moving on. Xenobiological specimens were particularly valuable to them. "So we'll need to be discreet," Vasquez concluded, "and prepared for conflict." She looked around the table at her crew. "I won't order any of you to participate in this mission. It's beyond our mandate, and the risks are significant. If anyone wants to register an objection, now is the time." No one spoke. Finally, Torres broke the silence with a wry smile. "Well, I always wanted to retrofit an alien spacecraft on a deadline while a star explodes. Cross that off my bucket list." A chuckle rippled around the table, breaking the tension. "Then it's settled," Vasquez said, standing straighter. "We're going to save the Luminars." As the meeting adjourned and the crew dispersed to begin preparations, Mia lingered behind with Max. "You've been quiet," Vasquez observed, approaching the K-9 Specialist. Mia scratched behind Max's ears, a gesture that usually comforted them both. "I was just thinking about what Dr. Lee said, about the Luminars' shared consciousness, their ability to connect deeply with each other." She looked up at her captain. "When Lyra touched foreheads with Max, something happened. I felt it through our bond. It was like seeing the world through new eyes." "Is that why you've been so adamant about helping them?" Mia nodded slowly. "Partly, but also because they remind me of our own companions." She gestured to Max, loyal, intelligent, emotional. "They form bonds, they care for their young, they mourn their dead. They may look alien, but in all the ways that matter, they're not so different from the dogs we've partnered with for thousands of years." Vasquez placed a hand on Mia's shoulder. "Then they couldn't ask for a better advocate. I'm putting you in charge of coordination between our team and the Luminars. Max seems to have a special connection with them, use it." As Vasquez walked away, Mia knelt beside her canine partner. "What do you think, boy? Ready to make some new friends?" Max's tail wagged emphatically, and for a moment, Mia could have sworn she saw a flash of blue light reflect in his eyes, an echo of the Luminar's glow. But then it was gone, and she dismissed it as a trick of the light. She couldn't have known then how deep the connection between Earth's dogs and the Luminars would grow, or how crucial that bond would prove to their survival. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. The Odyssey established a base camp near the main Luminar settlement, and work began immediately on multiple fronts. Dr. Lee worked closely with the Luminar elders, using a combination of rudimentary sign language and Max's peculiar ability to bridge the communication gap. Through their combined efforts, they began to understand the Luminars' history and culture. They've been monitoring their star's decay for generations, Lee explained during an evening briefing. They knew this was coming, but their previous attempts at evacuation were devastated by a series of solar flares about a century ago. Most of their spacecraft and technical knowledge were lost. While Lee focused on communication, Chief Engineer Torres led a team in assessing the remnants of Luminar technology. The news was better than expected. 3 large transport vessels could potentially be made spaceworthy again with significant modifications. Mia and her K-9 unit had perhaps the most unusual task. It quickly became apparent that the Luminars would need to be organized and coordinated during evacuation, but their communal decision-making process, while effective for their normal society, was too slow for emergency situations. The solution came from an unexpected source. "They respond to our dogs," Mia reported, demonstrating as Luna, her border collie, effortlessly guided a group of Luminars through an evacuation drill. It's as if they recognize the purpose-bred skills of different breeds and instinctively follow their lead. Max, with his protection and patrol training, became a natural security officer alongside Ramirez. Luna's herding instincts made her perfect for organizing group movements. And Rocky, a gentle Labrador trained in medical assistance, somehow knew exactly which Luminars were injured or ill, guiding them to the makeshift medical facilities. But not everyone was thriving in the new interspecies collaboration. Ramirez grew increasingly concerned about security as his patrols detected signs of Zorvan scout ships at the edge of the system. "They're watching us," he reported grimly during the 5th day's briefing. "They haven't made a move yet, but it's only a matter of time." "What would they want with the Luminars?" Torres asked. "Living specimens with unique biology?" Lee suggested. "The Luminars' ability to communicate through bioluminescence alone would make them valuable. Add in their partial hive mind and crystalline cellular structure. They'd be prizes for Zorvan collectors," Ramirez finished. "And they might not distinguish between Luminars and our own dogs." The implications were chilling. Earth's dogs, after millennia of coevolution with humans, possessed intelligence and emotional capacity far beyond most species. In the wrong hands, they could be exploited, experimented upon, or worse. Vasquez's expression hardened. "Then we accelerate our timeline." "Torres, how soon can those transport ships be ready?" 3 days, minimum, the engineer replied. "And that's with round-the-clock work." "You've got 2, Vasquez said firmly. Ramirez, set up defensive perimeters and early warning systems. I want to know the moment any Zorvan ships enter Xerion's atmosphere." As the meeting adjourned, Mia approached the captain. "There's something else we need to discuss," she said quietly. "The Luminars have shown me something through Max. There's a Zorvan outpost on the far side of the planet. They've already been taking Luminars, experimenting on them." Vasquez's eyes widened. "Why didn't you bring this up during the briefing?" Mia looked uncomfortable. "Because I didn't learn it through conventional means. It was a vision, I guess. When Max connected with Lyra, I saw fragments of their collective memory. Lyra showed him what happened to her mate and their offspring. Under normal circumstances, Vasquez might have dismissed such claims as fantasy. But she'd seen enough in her years with the IRC to know that interspecies communication often defied conventional understanding. How many captives? Dozens, at least. Lyra wants to rescue them before we evacuate." Vasquez sighed heavily. A rescue operation against a Zorvan outpost, while preparing for a mass evacuation, with a star about to go nova. She shook her head. "It's impossible." "With respect, Captain," Mia countered, "we can't leave them behind. The Luminars won't abandon their own. It goes against everything in their collective consciousness. If we try to force the issue, we'll lose their trust. Before Vasquez could respond, Max suddenly lifted his head, ears perked forward. A moment later, Lyra appeared at the entrance to the command tent, her silver-blue fur pulsing with urgent patterns. The Luminar approached Vasquez directly, sitting before her with dignified purpose. Then, in a gesture that left both humans speechless, Lyra raised one paw and placed it gently on the captain's hand. The connection lasted only seconds, but it was enough. Vasquez gasped as her mind filled with images, Luminars in transparent cells, their fur dulled with pain and fear, Zorvan scientists coldly documenting their responses to various stimuli. When Lyra withdrew her paw, Vasquez's decision was made. "We'll rescue them," she said quietly. "Not just because the Luminars insist, but because it's right." Mia nodded, relief evident on her face. "Thank you, Captain. Lyra has already shown Max a way in maintenance tunnels that run beneath the Zorvan facility. They were part of an ancient Luminar structure the Zorvans built upon. "We'll need a small team," Vasquez said, already planning. "You and Max, obviously. Ramirez for tactical support. And we'll need a diversion to draw attention from the main facility while you infiltrate." As she outlined the rescue plan, neither woman noticed the subtle change in Max's eyes, a faint blue luminescence that flickered momentarily before fading away. The bond between Earth's dogs and the Luminars was growing stronger by the hour, creating connections that would soon prove crucial to their shared survival. The Zorvan outpost loomed against Xerion's turbulent sky, a stark metallic structure that seemed to deliberately clash with the crystalline beauty of the planet. From their vantage point on a ridge overlooking the facility, Ramirez surveyed the defenses through high-powered binoculars. "Minimal exterior guards," he reported. "They're not expecting trouble. Most of their security is probably automated, sensors, drones, that sort of thing." Beside him, Mia checked Max's tactical vest one last time, ensuring the specialized equipment was secure. The German shepherd sat calmly, his attention fixed on Lyra, who was communicating something to him through pulses of light across her fur. "Lyra says the entrance to the tunnels is about half a kilometer east of the facility," Mia translated. "She's showing Max the route now." Ramirez lowered his binoculars. "And you're sure he can access these memories? Navigate tunnels he's never seen based on images from an alien dog?" "I'm sure," Mia replied simply. After working with K-9 units for over a decade, she had learned to trust the bond between handler and dog. And the connection between Max and the Luminars went beyond anything she'd ever experienced. "Captain Vasquez to infiltration team," their comms crackled to life. "Diversion is in position. You have a go in 3 minutes." "Understood," Ramirez acknowledged. "We're moving into position." The diversion was simple but effective, a series of controlled seismic charges placed far enough from the facility to avoid structural damage but close enough to trigger alarms. Combined with the planet's already unstable condition, the Zorvans would likely assume it was natural activity requiring their attention. As the charges detonated, creating a spectacular light show and tremors that rippled across the landscape, Mia, Ramirez, Max, and Lyra moved quickly toward the tunnel entrance. Lyra led them to what appeared to be an unremarkable rock formation. The Luminar pressed her paw against a specific crystal, and to the human's amazement, a section of ground slid away to reveal a narrow passage descending into darkness. "Impressive," Ramirez murmured, activating his tactical light. "Let's move." The tunnels were ancient, clearly designed for Luminar use, with phosphorescent crystals embedded in the walls providing minimal illumination. Max took the lead alongside Lyra, the two canines moving with confident purpose while Mia and Ramirez followed. "These tunnels are extensive," Mia whispered as they navigated a complex intersection. "Lyra says they were used for travel during extreme weather events in their past." "Convenient," Ramirez replied. "Let's just hope the Zorvans haven't discovered them." They continued in tense silence for nearly 20 minutes, descending steadily beneath the Zorvan facility. Occasionally, Max would pause, listening intently, before choosing a direction. Lyra's fur pulsed with constant patterns, seemingly guiding him. Finally, they reached a vertical shaft with ancient handholds carved into the wall. "Up there," Mia said, pointing. "Lyra says it leads directly into the lower levels of the facility, where they're keeping the captured Luminars." "I'll go first," Ramirez decided, checking his weapon before beginning the climb. "Then you send up Max in the harness, followed by Lyra. You come last and watch our backs." The climb was nerve-wracking but uneventful. At the top, Ramirez helped hoist Max and Lyra into what appeared to be a storage room filled with abandoned equipment. "So far, so good," he whispered as Mia joined them. "Now we need to find the detention area." Max suddenly tensed, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Before Ramirez could react, the door to the storage room slid open, and a Zorvan technician stepped in, attention focused on a datapad. The reptilian alien froze at the sight of the intruders, mouth opening to sound an alarm. Ramirez moved with lightning speed, tackling the Zorvan and clamping a hand over its mouth. After a brief struggle, the technician went limp, subdued by Ramirez's chokehold. "That was close," Mia breathed, helping Ramirez secure the unconscious alien. "But we've lost the element of surprise if he's missed." "Then we move fast," Ramirez decided, retrieving the technician's access card. "Max, find our targets." The German shepherd sniffed the air, then looked to Lyra, who had gone completely still, her fur glowing with a steady pulse. After a moment, both canines turned toward the door with determined purpose. With Ramirez taking point and Mia covering their rear, they moved through the facility's sterile corridors, guided by the uncanny teamwork of Max and Lyra. Twice they had to duck into alcoves to avoid Zorvan patrols, but the diversion seemed to be working. The facility was operating with minimal staff. Finally, they reached a secured door marked with Zorvan symbols. Using the stolen access card, Ramirez opened it to reveal a laboratory space with transparent cells lining the walls. Inside each cell was a Luminar, their once vibrant fur now dull, barely glowing. Lyra's fur flashed with patterns that needed no translation: grief, rage, determination. She rushed to the nearest cell, pressing her paw against the transparent barrier. The captive Luminar inside responded weakly, its own fur flickering. "We need to get them out," Mia said urgently, examining the control panel. "But I can't read Zorvan." Max whined, pawing at a specific section of the panel. Following his lead, Mia pressed what appeared to be a master release. To her relief, the cell doors slid open simultaneously. The freed Luminars stumbled out weakly, gathering around Lyra, who seemed to be communicating instructions through her light patterns. Some were too weak to stand. Others bore visible signs of experimentation. "This is Ramirez," the sergeant reported via comlink. "We've located approximately 30 captives. Some will need medical assistance. Beginning extraction now." "Acknowledged," Vasquez replied, her voice tense. "Be advised, we're detecting increased Zorvan activity in your sector. The diversion won't hold their attention much longer." As if on cue, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. "Time to go," Ramirez ordered, helping Mia gather the weakest Luminars. "Same route back." But as they turned to leave, 3 Zorvan security officers appeared in the doorway, weapons raised. "Intruders," the lead Zorvan hissed. "Surrender or—" Before he could finish, Max launched into action, years of protection training taking over. He hit the lead Zorvan with enough force to knock him backward into his companions, creating momentary chaos. In that instant, something extraordinary happened. Lyra's fur blazed with intense light, and every Luminar in the room responded in kind, their collective glow becoming blinding. The Zorvans recoiled, shielding their eyes. "Now!" Ramirez shouted, firing his stun weapon at the disoriented guards. "Move!" The retreat was chaotic. Mia and Ramirez helped the weakest Luminars while Max and Lyra guided the others. Behind them, security alarms continued to wail as the facility locked down section by section. They had almost reached the storage room and their escape route when disaster struck. A seismic tremor, a real one this time, not their diversion, shook the facility violently. Part of the ceiling collapsed, trapping Ramirez beneath a section of fallen debris. "Sergeant!" Mia cried, rushing to his side. The rubble had pinned his leg, and blood seeped from a wound on his forehead. "Hold on, we'll get you out." Ramirez grimaced in pain. "No time. Get the Luminars out. That's the mission." "We're not leaving you," Mia insisted, trying to shift the largest piece of debris, but it was too heavy. Max barked urgently, drawing her attention. The German Shepherd was standing beside Lyra and 3 other Luminars, all of them staring intently at the fallen debris. Before Mia could understand what was happening, the Luminars pressed their heads against Max's, forming a circle. Their fur began to pulse in perfect synchrony, a rippling wave of blue-white light that seemed to intensify with each second. Then, to Mia's astonishment, Max's eyes began to glow with the same light. The German Shepherd approached the debris pinning Ramirez and began to dig with focused intensity. The Luminars joined him, their paws scrabbling at specific points in the rubble. Somehow, they were working together with an efficiency that went beyond instinct, as if they shared a single mind. Within minutes, they had cleared enough debris for Mia to pull Ramirez free. The sergeant was battered but mobile with support. "What just happened?" he gasped as Mia helped him to his feet. "I think," Mia said slowly, watching as Max's eyes gradually returned to normal, "we just witnessed the true power of the Luminar's collective consciousness, and somehow, Max tapped into it." There was no time for further discussion. They could hear Zorvan's security forces approaching from multiple directions. With Ramirez leaning heavily on Mia, they made their final push to the escape tunnel, the Luminars forming a protective circle around them. As the last of them disappeared into the shaft, Max and Lyra took up rearguard positions, facing the approaching Zorvans with defiant solidarity. One, a product of thousands of years of human partnership. The other, an alien being from across the stars, united in purpose. In that moment, despite their different origins, they were simply 2 brave dogs defending their families. Captain Vasquez paced the bridge of the Odyssey, tension evident in every line of her body. The rescue team was 20 minutes overdue, and Zorvan ships had been detected entering Xerion's atmosphere. "Any word from Ramirez?" she asked Communications Officer Lou for the 3rd time in as many minutes. "Nothing yet, Captain," Lou replied. "But this radiation storm could be interfering with our—" "Wait, I'm getting something. Audio only very weak." "Put it through," Vasquez ordered, moving closer to the console. "Repeat." Mission accomplished. Ramirez's voice crackled through static. 32 Luminars recovered. Request immediate extraction. We are at emergency rendezvous point Beta, but we have wounded and are being pursued. Understood, Vasquez replied. Shuttle 2 is inbound to your position. Leave 5 minutes. She turned to tactical. Deploy defensive drones to cover their extraction. If the Zorvans want a fight, let's give them one. Across the planet, Torres and her engineering team worked frantically to complete the retrofitting of the Luminar transport vessels. The unexpected raid had forced them to accelerate their already tight schedule. Reroute power from the auxiliary systems. Torres instructed her team as she made final adjustments to the propulsion system of the largest vessel. We don't need life support at full capacity for a short journey. A violent tremor shook the ground, nearly knocking her off her feet. Above them, Xerion's sky had taken on an ominous crimson hue as the dying star shed its outer layers. Chief, one of her engineers called out, sensors are picking up increasing instability in the planet's core. These quakes are getting worse. Torres wiped sweat from her brow. How long? At current progression, the planet's crust will begin to fracture irreparably within 48 hours. Then we'll be gone in 36, Torres stated with more confidence than she felt. Keep working. Back at the Odyssey, the shuttle carrying the rescue team and the freed Luminars docked with the ship, emergency medical personnel rushing to meet them. Dr. Lee was among them, his medical training proving as valuable as his xenobiology expertise. Get Sergeant Ramirez to sickbay, he ordered as the wounded security officer was helped out of the shuttle. Specialist Chen, are you injured? Mia shook her head, though exhaustion was evident on her face. I'm fine. Focus on the Luminars. Some of them are in bad shape. As medical teams began to assess the rescued aliens, Captain Vasquez approached, relief evident in her expression. Well done, she said simply, placing a hand on Mia's shoulder. But we're not out of danger yet. The Zorvans have launched 3 ships, and long-range sensors show more on the way. We need more time, Mia said, frustration edging her voice. The Luminars aren't ready for evacuation, and Torres needs at least another day for the transport ships. Time is the one thing we don't have, Vasquez replied grimly. That star won't wait, and neither will the Zorvans. Max, who had been staying close to Lyra and the other rescued Luminars, suddenly approached the 2 women. The German shepherd had a strange intensity in his gaze that Mia had come to recognize. He wants us to follow him, she said, already moving. Vasquez fell into step beside her as Max led them to the ship's observation deck. There, they found all the Earth dogs gathered, Luna, Rocky, and the other K-9 team members, sitting in a semicircle around Lyra and several elder Luminars. The alien's fur was pulsing with synchronized patterns, creating an almost hypnotic effect. What's happening? Vasquez whispered. I think, Mia replied slowly, they're having a meeting. As she spoke, Max joined the circle, sitting directly opposite Lyra. The other Earth dogs did the same, forming a perfect alternating pattern of terrestrial and alien canines. Then, one by one, each Luminar touched foreheads with the Earth dog across from them. A wave of luminescence swept around the circle, growing brighter with each connection. For a moment, it seemed as if the Earth dog's fur shimmered with a ghost of the same light, an impossibility that nonetheless appeared real to the watching humans. The connection lasted perhaps 30 seconds before breaking. As it did, Max turned to Mia, barking with clear purpose. He wants me to come with him, Mia said, following as her partner trotted to a nearby console. To Vasquez's astonishment, Max pawed at the controls with unusual precision, bringing up the ship's tactical display. Lyra approached, her fur glowing with complex patterns. She placed one paw on the display, indicating a specific region of space near Xerion. I think they're trying to show us something, Mia said, adjusting the controls to zoom in on the area. What appeared was a swirling field of asteroids and debris. Remnants Claude hit the max length for a message and has paused its response. You can write continue to keep the chat going. I continue at BV. Escape from Xerion, continued. Of asteroids and debris, remnants of a small moon that had been torn apart by Xerion's increasingly unstable gravitational field. It's a debris field, Vasquez observed. But why are they showing us this? Lyra's fur pulsed again, and Max barked sharply. Mia frowned in concentration as she interpreted. I think they're suggesting we use it as cover. The radiation and gravitational distortions would mask our signature from Zorvan sensors. Vasquez studied the tactical display with renewed interest. It's risky. Navigating that field would challenge even our best pilots. But if we could position the fleet there while we complete preparations... The captain tapped her communicator. Vasquez to bridge. Plot a course to these coordinates and alert Torres that we're relocating the operation. As the Odyssey changed course, Max and Lyra remained side by side, watching the stars through the observation window. Something had changed between them, a deeper connection that transcended species. I've never seen anything like it, Mia said quietly to Vasquez. It's as if the Luminar's collective consciousness has somehow extended to include our dogs. Is that even possible? the captain asked. I don't know. But I've worked with K-9 units for years, and I've never seen Max behave this way. It's like he's thinking on a different level now. Before Vasquez could respond, her communicator chimed. Captain, came Torres's voice, the transport ships are ready for preliminary testing. But I've got another problem. The Luminars are refusing to board. What? Why? They're insisting on waiting for something. We can't understand what, but they're all displaying the same light pattern. Dr. Lee thinks it's important, something about their collective decision-making. Vasquez looked at Lyra, who was still engaged in silent communication with Max. I think I know what they're waiting for, she said slowly. The rescue team. They won't leave until all their people are accounted for. It was a fundamental aspect of their collective consciousness, a refusal to abandon any part of their whole. The concept of leaving members behind was literally unthinkable to them. Send a shuttle to rendezvous with us in the debris field, Vasquez ordered. We'll bring the rescued Luminars directly to the launch site. The plan worked better than they could have hoped. The debris field provided perfect cover from Zorvan sensors, allowing them crucial hours to complete preparations. By the time the Zorvan fleet realized where they had gone, the first transport ship was already being loaded with Luminar passengers. But their problems were far from over. As the evacuation began in earnest, Xerion's deterioration accelerated dramatically. Massive fissures opened in the planet's crust, venting superheated gases into the atmosphere. The ground shook continuously, making movement difficult and dangerous. We need to hurry, Vasquez urged as she supervised the loading of the second transport. Beside her, Ramirez, his leg bandaged but back on duty, coordinated security teams keeping watch for Zorvan incursions. They're moving as fast as they can, he replied, gesturing to where Luna, the border collie, was efficiently herding groups of Luminars into organized boarding lines. But we're still looking at another 6 hours minimum. The planet doesn't have 6 hours, Dr. Lee interrupted, hurrying toward them with a data tablet. These latest readings, the core instability is cascading. I estimate catastrophic failure within 3 hours, maybe less. Vasquez's expression remained calm, but her voice carried new urgency as she activated her communicator. All teams, accelerate evacuation procedures. This is now a critical timeline. As if to emphasize her words, a violent tremor shook the ground, more powerful than any before. A nearby crystalline formation shattered, sending dangerous shards flying in all directions. Ramirez tackled Vasquez out of the path of a particularly large fragment, both of them hitting the ground hard as chaos erupted around them. Captain! Mia's voice called out from somewhere in the dust and confusion. We've got incoming. Zorvan shuttles, at least 3 of them. The situation was deteriorating faster than anyone had anticipated. Between the planet's imminent destruction and the Zorvan threat, they were rapidly running out of options. Get as many Luminars as possible on the transports, Vasquez ordered, getting to her feet with Ramirez's help. Priority to the young and the elders. The Odyssey will provide cover against the Zorvans. As emergency protocols activated across their makeshift spaceport, an unexpected drama was unfolding among the K-9 team and the Luminars. Max, Luna, Rocky, and the other Earth dogs had gathered with Lyra and several Luminar leaders, their silent communication taking on new urgency. Mia noticed the gathering as she was helping guide frightened Luminars toward the transports. Something in Max's posture, a tense readiness she recognized from countless missions, drew her attention. "What is it, boy?" she asked, kneeling beside him. Max looked at her with an intensity that took her breath away. Then, deliberately, he pressed his forehead against hers in the same way the Luminars connected with each other. The contact lasted only seconds, but in that brief moment, Mia experienced something extraordinary, a flash of images, emotions, and purpose that weren't her own. She saw the Zorvan shuttles through different eyes, perceived weak points in their design that human analysis had missed, felt the collective determination of both Earth dogs and Luminars united in purpose. When Max pulled away, Mia remained frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by what she had experienced. Then she scrambled to her feet, rushing to find Captain Vasquez. "Captain," she called out, breathless. "I know how to stop the Zorvans." The bridge of the Odyssey was a center of controlled chaos as the ship positioned itself between the evacuating transports and the approaching Zorvan vessels. "Shields at maximum," Tactical Officer Patel reported. "Zorvan lead ship is charging weapons." "Hold position," Vasquez ordered calmly. "Target their weapon systems only. We're here to protect the evacuation, not start a war." On the main view screen, the 3 Zorvan ships approached in formation, sleek, predatory vessels designed for speed and precision strikes rather than head-on conflict. "They're hailing us," Lu announced from communications. On screen, Vasquez commanded, straightening her uniform. The image of a Zorvan commander appeared, reptilian features set in an expression of cold calculation. "IRC vessel," the Zorvan said without preamble. "You are interfering with a legitimate salvage operation. The specimens you are removing from this planet fall under Zorvan claim rights for this sector." "These are not specimens," Vasquez replied evenly. "They are sentient beings evacuating from a natural disaster. The IRC recognizes their right to self-determination and survival." The Zorvan's expression didn't change. "Your ethical considerations are irrelevant. Stand down and surrender the specimens, or we will take them by force." "That won't be happening," Vasquez stated firmly. "These people are under our protection." The Zorvan commander bared teeth in what might have been a smile. "Protection? Your single vessel against 3 of ours? Even if you could defeat us, there are 5 more Zorvan ships en route. You cannot win this confrontation, Captain." "End transmission," Vasquez ordered, turning to her tactical officer. "Battle stations. Prepare for—" "Captain," Mia interrupted, rushing onto the bridge with Max at her side. "I have a plan, but you need to trust me. Trust us." She gestured to the German shepherd, whose posture radiated a confidence that seemed almost supernatural. Under normal circumstances, Vasquez might have dismissed such an interruption during a crisis. But the events of the past week had been far from normal, and she had learned to recognize when something extraordinary was happening. "Quickly, Specialist." Mia approached the tactical station, Max keeping pace beside her. "The Luminars have shown us, a weakness in Zorvan ship design. Their sensor arrays are hypersensitive to certain energy frequencies. It's how they track their specimens so effectively." She indicated a specific area on the tactical display. "If we can generate a precisely modulated burst of energy at this frequency, we can temporarily overload their systems." Patel looked skeptical. "That would require calibrations we don't have time to calculate." "We don't need to calculate them," Mia replied, looking down at Max. "The Luminars already know the exact frequency. They've been studied by the Zorvans for months. They know how their technology works." Vasquez hesitated only briefly. "Do it," she ordered. "Route whatever resources Specialist Chen needs through tactical." What followed was perhaps the strangest collaboration in IRC history. Mia worked at the tactical console while Max sat beside her, occasionally pressing his nose to her hand when she reached critical decision points. To the amazed bridge crew, it almost seemed as if dog and handler were functioning as a single entity. On the planet's surface, Torres supervised the final loading of the Luminar transports. The ground was now shaking continuously, massive fissures venting superheated gas into the atmosphere. "That's the last group," she reported via communicator. "Transport 3 is lifting off now. 1 and 2 are already in low orbit awaiting escort." "Understood," Vasquez acknowledged. "Maintain position and prepare for emergency acceleration on my mark." On the tactical display, the Zorvan ships continued their approach, now close enough that their weapon signatures were clearly visible as they powered up. "Energy modulation ready," Mia reported, her hand resting on Max's head. The German shepherd's eyes were fixed on the view screen, his entire body tense with anticipation. Zorvan ships in optimal range, Patel added. Fire, Vasquez commanded. The effect was immediate and dramatic. A pulse of energy, invisible to the human eye but precisely tuned to the frequency Mia had specified, erupted from the Odyssey's deflector array. When it reached the Zorvan vessels, their shields flared briefly before their ships began to drift, systems clearly disrupted. Direct hit on all 3 vessels, Patel reported, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. Their weapons and propulsion systems are offline. Sensors indicate internal systems are also compromised. How long will they be disabled? Vasquez asked. Based on the Luminars' knowledge, about 15 minutes, Mia replied. But there are more Zorvan ships coming. 15 minutes is all we need, Vasquez decided. Signal the transports to make for the rendezvous coordinates at maximum speed. We'll cover their retreat. As the orders were carried out, Vasquez approached Mia and Max. Well done, both of you, she said quietly. I don't pretend to understand exactly what's happening between our dogs and the Luminars, but I'm grateful for it. Mia nodded, stroking Max's fur. I think we're just beginning to understand it ourselves, Captain. There's something evolving between them. A new kind of communication, a shared consciousness that bridges species. Before Vasquez could respond, a violent shudder ran through the ship. Gravitational distortion, the helmsman called out. The planet's magnetic field is collapsing. On the main view screen, Xerion's surface was visibly breaking apart, massive sections of crust separating as the planet's core destabilized. The dying star loomed larger than ever, its angry red surface seeming to reach toward them with tendrils of solar plasma. Get us out of here, Vasquez ordered. All ships, maximum warp as soon as you clear the system's gravity well. As the Odyssey and the Luminar transports accelerated away from the doomed planet, no one spoke. On the bridge, humans and dogs alike watched the view screen as Xerion, home of the Luminars for countless generations, began its final death throes. Then, in a blinding flash that momentarily overloaded their sensors, the planet's core collapsed completely. The shockwave rippled outward, powerful enough that they felt its passage even at their distance. When the sensors cleared, Xerion was gone, reduced to an expanding field of debris orbiting the dying star. All ships accounted for, Lu reported softly. Minimal damage from the shockwave. The Luminar transports are maintaining formation. Vasquez let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Set course for the Caldera system, she ordered. It's the nearest habitable world outside of Zorvan influence. As the stars streaked past on the view screen, signaling their jump to warp speed, Mia knelt beside Max, wrapping her arms around his sturdy frame. We did it, boy, she whispered. We saved them. Max licked her cheek once, then turned his gaze back to the view screen, as if looking toward a future only he could see. The Caldera system was a jewel of the sector, 3 habitable planets orbiting a stable yellow star, with the outermost world, Caldera 3, being particularly suited for the Luminar's needs. Its crystalline formations and mineral-rich soil closely resembled their lost homeworld, and its relatively sparse native life meant minimal ecological disruption from their settlement. 2 weeks after the evacuation from Xerion, Captain Vasquez stood on a ridge overlooking what was rapidly becoming the first Luminar colony. The aliens had proven remarkably adaptable, their collective consciousness allowing them to coordinate efforts with extraordinary efficiency. It's impressive, isn't it? Dr. Lee commented, joining her at the overlook. In just 14 days, they've established a sustainable settlement with functioning infrastructure. It would take human colonists months to accomplish the same. Vasquez nodded. Their ability to work as a unified whole gives them advantages we can barely comprehend. Below them, Luminars moved purposefully among partially completed crystal structures, their fur glowing with patterns that coordinated their efforts. Interspersed among them were Earth dogs, not just the trained K-9 units from the Odyssey, but companions from the IRC colony on Caldera 2 who had volunteered to help with the integration. The relationship between the two species had deepened in ways that continued to astonish the human observers. Earth dogs seemed naturally attuned to the Luminars' method of communication, often anticipating needs or conveying messages between Luminar groups with uncanny accuracy. "Have you reviewed my latest findings?" Lee asked, offering Vasquez a data tablet. She skimmed the report, her eyebrows rising. "You're certain about this?" "The evidence is preliminary but consistent," Lee confirmed. "The neural patterns we're observing in our K-9 team members show subtle but significant changes. It's as if exposure to the Luminar's collective consciousness has activated latent pathways in canine brains, pathways that have always existed but remained dormant until now." "Are there any negative effects?" Vasquez asked, concerned. "None that we can detect. If anything, their cognitive abilities seem enhanced. Their problem-solving skills, memory retention, even their already impressive empathic capabilities, all show measurable improvement." Vasquez handed back the tablet, thoughtful. "And the Luminars? How are they adapting to their new environment?" "Remarkably well. Their crystalline cellular structure gives them significant adaptability to different atmospheric conditions. And with the transplanted flora from Xerion beginning to take root, they should have everything they need for a sustainable ecosystem." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Mia and Max, returning from an excursion into the newly established Luminar settlement. The German shepherd looked particularly satisfied, trotting with the confident bearing of one who has found his purpose. "Captain, Doctor," Mia greeted them. "Lyra has invited you to a ceremony this evening. The Council of Elders wishes to formally thank the IRC for our assistance." "We'll be there," Vasquez assured her. "How's the integration progressing?" A smile spread across Mia's face. "Better than we could have hoped. The Luminars have dedicated an entire section of their settlement as a joint training facility. They're calling it the Harmony Center, a place where their young can learn from our dogs, and our dogs can learn from them." "Learn what exactly?" Lee asked, scientific curiosity evident in his voice. Mia glanced down at Max, who was sitting attentively at her side. "That's the most fascinating part. The Luminars believe that the connection they've formed with our dogs is just the beginning. They think there's potential for a true symbiotic relationship, one that benefits both species in ways we're only beginning to understand." As if to demonstrate, Max suddenly raised his head, ears perked forward. A moment later, Lyra appeared at the crest of the ridge, her silver-blue fur glowing with welcome. The Luminar approached the group with dignified grace, inclining her head to the humans before touching foreheads briefly with Max. "She wants to show you something," Mia translated, though it wasn't clear whether she was interpreting Max's subtle cues or if she somehow sensed Lyra's intent directly. The group followed Lyra down into the settlement, passing through areas of bustling activity. Everywhere they looked, Luminars and Earth dogs worked in tandem, herding animals, moving materials, or simply communicating in that strange, silent way they had developed. Lyra led them to a central structure, a dome of crystalline material that captured and refracted light in beautiful patterns. Inside, a group of young Luminars sat in a circle with several puppies from the Caldera 2 colony. As the humans watched in amazement, the Luminar young began to pulse with gentle patterns of light. The puppies, rather than being confused or frightened by this display, responded with attentive focus. One by one, they approached the Luminar children, touching noses or foreheads in brief connection. "What are we seeing?" Vasquez whispered. "The future," Mia replied simply. "The Luminars believe that the next generation of both species will share an even deeper connection, that the barriers between their minds will continue to diminish with each successive generation." Lee was already scanning with his instruments, his expression one of scientific wonder. "The neural synchronization is remarkable," he murmured. "It's as if their brains are adapting to communicate on the same frequency." The demonstration continued for several minutes before Lyra led them back outside, where the setting sun cast long shadows across the new settlement. The ceremony will begin at dusk, Mia informed them. It's meant to honor not just the rescue mission, but the new bond between our species. As they made their way back to the IRC base camp, Vasquez found herself reflecting on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them to this moment. What had begun as a straightforward rescue mission had evolved into something far more profound, the birth of a unique interspecies relationship that promised to enrich both humans and Luminars. That evening, under the alien stars of Caldera 3, the remaining crew of the Odyssey gathered with the Luminar elders in a natural amphitheater formed by crystalline formations. Lyra, now formally recognized as the ambassador between their species, stood at the center alongside Max, who seemed to understand the importance of the occasion. The ceremony was simple but moving. Each Luminar elder approached a member of the IRC team who had played a significant role in the rescue, pressing their forehead against the human's hand in a gesture of profound gratitude. When Lyra reached Captain Vasquez, she did something unprecedented. She rose on her hind legs, placing her paws on the captain's shoulders to touch her forehead directly to Vasquez's. In that moment of connection, Vasquez experienced a glimpse of what Mia had described, a flash of images, emotions, and understanding that transcended words. She saw Xerion as it had once been, felt the deep sorrow of its loss and the hope for a new beginning on Caldera. Most powerfully, she felt the Luminars' gratitude, not just for the rescue itself, but for the bridge that humans and their canine companions had built between their species. When Lyra stepped back, Vasquez found herself blinking away tears. The ceremony concluded with a display that none of the humans present would ever forget. As the last light faded from the sky, every Luminar began to glow, not in the utilitarian patterns of their daily communication, but in spectacular, synchronized waves of light that rippled across the gathering like a living aurora. The Earth Dogs responded in their own way, a harmonious chorus of howls that echoed through the crystalline formations, creating an otherworldly melody that seemed to touch something primal in the human observers. It was a song of survival, of connection, of hope for the future, a future where the boundaries between species became not barriers but bridges to understanding. 6 months later, the Odyssey returned to Caldera 3 on a routine follow-up mission. Vasquez, having been promoted to admiral following the successful rescue, had made a point of commanding this particular assignment herself. What they found exceeded even their most optimistic projections. The Luminar settlement had flourished into a thriving community, its crystalline structures now fully integrated with the landscape. More surprising was the IRC research outpost established adjacent to the settlement, a joint initiative studying the evolving relationship between Luminars and Earth Dogs. Mia Chen, who had chosen to remain on Caldera 3 as the liaison officer, greeted Vasquez at the landing pad. Max stood proudly at her side, his coat glossier than the Admiral remembered, with subtle highlights that almost seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. "Welcome back, Admiral," Mia said warmly. "You've arrived just in time for the Harmony Festival." "Harmony Festival?" Vasquez inquired as they walked toward the settlement. "A celebration of the first successful births in the colony," Mia explained. "Both Luminar pups and a litter of puppies from Luna, our border collie. The timing was not coincidental, we believe." The implications of this synchronicity were not lost on Vasquez. "And how are the youngsters getting along?" A smile spread across Mia's face. "That's what I wanted to show you." She led Vasquez to a special enclosure within the Harmony Center, where a remarkable scene unfolded before them. Luminar pups, their fur already showing the bioluminescent patterns of their species, played alongside Earth puppies with boundless energy and obvious joy. But what caught Vasquez's attention was the nature of their play, the Earth puppies occasionally pausing, their eyes seeming to glow momentarily as they communicated in a way that mirrored the Luminar's light patterns. "It's happening faster than we anticipated," Mia said quietly. "Dr. Lee's team believes the neurological adaptation is being passed down genetically now." These puppies were born with an innate ability to perceive and interpret the Luminars' communications. And the Luminar pups? Vasquez asked. They're showing increased vocalization, barks, whines, growls that mimic Earth dogs. It's as if both species are meeting in the middle, creating a shared language. As they watched, one of Luna's puppies, a black and white bundle of energy, approached a slightly larger Luminar pup. The two youngsters touched foreheads briefly before racing off together, perfectly synchronized in their movements. That's Hope, Mia identified the puppy. And the Luminar is Nova, one of Lyra's offspring. Vasquez observed the interaction with wonder. It's remarkable how quickly they've bonded. It goes beyond bonding, Mia explained. According to our latest research, they're sharing sensory experiences, literally perceiving the world through each other's senses during these connections. Nova sees colors that Hope can't, but during their connection, Hope experiences them. And Nova benefits from Hope's superior sense of smell. The Admiral shook her head in amazement. I never imagined this outcome when we answered that distress call. None of us did, Mia agreed. But then, the most profound discoveries often come from unexpected places. She nodded toward where Max and Lyra now sat side by side on a rise overlooking the playpen, watching over the youngsters with evident satisfaction. They knew that. Somehow, they understood the potential from the beginning. As the sun began to set on Caldera 3, casting prismatic reflections through the crystalline structures of the Luminar settlement, Vasquez found herself reflecting on the greater meaning of their unexpected adventure. What had begun as a straightforward rescue mission, humans and their faithful companions saving an alien species from destruction, had evolved into something far more profound. A new kind of partnership that transcended the boundaries of world and species. The Luminars had lost their homeworld but found new allies. Earth's dogs, already humanity's oldest friends, had discovered new dimensions to their remarkable intelligence. And humanity itself had been reminded of an important truth, that compassion and cooperation could forge bonds stronger than the differences that seemed to divide living beings across the galaxy. Against the backdrop of a dying star and a planet torn apart, life had found a way not just to survive, but to evolve, adapt, and thrive in unexpected harmony. As if sensing her thoughts, Max and Lyra turned simultaneously to gaze at the humans. For just a moment, Vasquez could have sworn she saw a flicker of blue luminescence in the German shepherd's eyes, an echo of the Luminar glow that symbolized their shared future. A future built on the foundation of loyalty, courage, and companionship that had always been the hallmark of humanity's relationship with its oldest friends, now extended across the stars to new worlds and new beginnings.